I won't say much more. I'm just giving the floor to the team that has been working on this project for the last months and looking forward to hearing the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So welcome everyone to the last presentation of the day. We had the opportunity to work alongside WDSF, and the project was about developing and performing a survey that would help them gather information, relevant information, so they could improve and help in the performance of WDSF or DanceSport worldwide. So in that sense, we would like to thank Guillaume and Jean-Laurent, who's not here, but we extend our gratitude to them because it was amazing to work with you and your support was really good. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to talk a bit about the team and about WDSF if you don't really know what do they do, as well as some delving into the project and the methodologies and the activities we performed. And also we will talk about the survey structure and some key findings that we found during our analysis. And finalizing with the recommendations and how we make this process sustainable for the future. So about the team, it's composed by Simon Carden, Alexandre Diaz, Mark Doric, and myself, Paula Lopez. And together we combined a 30 plus years of experience in business development, marketing, finance, and project management. And then about WDSF. WDSF stands for World DanceSport Federation, and it's the governing body of dance competitions worldwide and across a diverse range of styles. And it was recognized by IOC 20 years ago now, and is part of the AISTS, the International World and Master Games as well. And WDSF follows or pursues 5 main objectives, which are advance, promote, and protect dance sport, also developing some standardized governing rules, enforce the code of conduct and standards of ethics, and as well to represent the dance sport in the Olympic movement. And these 5 objectives are the core and the reason why this project was developed. So talking about the project, we just have to say that WDSF identified the need of developing a survey that would help them gather information from their 91 national member bodies. And with that, they will encourage the participation and involvement of them in dance sport, as well as they would promote dance competitions and also promote the continuous improvement of the federation. Therefore, they decided to work alongside the AISTS team to develop a survey process that could be used in the future, and that would include project planning, questionnaire development, data analysis, and key findings and recommendations. So talking about our methodology based on that requirements, we developed a 4 phases methodology that was taken care of and carried out over the past 6 months. And the 4 phases were develop, test, collect, and analyze. For the develop phase, what we did was develop a project plan, a work plan, also a questionnaire draft, and we selected an online tool that would be the thing we would be using for all the national member bodies. Then for the test phase, what we did was select 3 members from all the national member bodies of WDSF that would perform a pilot test so we could gather information from them of what could be improved and adjust that survey or questionnaire according to the key findings to roll out the final questionnaire. And in the collect part, what we did was spread and launch to every national member body the final questionnaire. And during that process, what we did was collect the data and use it in a database that will be analyzed in the analyze phase. So this is what we did in the final phase, perform the analysis, and then report the final findings to the Presidium as well as the WDSF President. So in this tiny timeline, you can see the key activities we performed during the period of 6 months from January to June. But the project actually kicked off in November. But what we did is the main activities started actually beginning of January and beginning of June. And now some general findings about the survey as a whole. As I said, we decided to use one online survey tool, and we translated the questionnaire in 4 languages, which were Portuguese, French, Spanish, and English. And we developed one pilot test with Spain, Germany, and Hungary. And the final survey was sent to the 88 members. And here we can see the member response distribution, and that summarizes an 81% response rate. Some survey figures for this. There were 75 members that replied to our survey. It was 120 questions. In average, 2.5 hours took them to complete the survey. And we had 3 main sections. And those sections touch a little bit of the main topics now, that it was structure, governance, and Youth Olympic Games. The importance of Youth Olympic Games for this particular survey was because WDSF was now accepted as part of the Youth Olympic Games to be performed in Buenos Aires in 2018. So it was really important for them to know what they were developing, what they were doing there. And finally, we gave them 3 weeks total to complete the survey. And on that, this table shows us how was the response rate. We had 3 weeks to let them respond to the questionnaire, but there was just one official deadline. It was 2 extensions and 1 official deadline. The official deadline, we managed it through the president of the WDSF, who sent a letter to all the members saying that it was important, their participation in this. And as well, we sent emails to everyone else, reminding them, sending them the link to the survey, and that's how it worked. And for the second deadline, what we did was personalized every email to every member that was missing. And by the third and final deadline, what we did was call them. We called everyone that wasn't replying. So that actually enhanced our response rate that finished with the 81% we just said. And this is the distribution of the members that did not answer. Europe with 10, America with 2, Africa with 2, and Asia with 2 as well. And on that, our responses per continent look like this. It's fair to say that mostly the countries that did not reply, or the members that could not reply, were the less developed. And we tried to call, they maybe not have websites, but we really had a good response rate. Even though Africa might seem like it's huge the way they did not reply, it represents just a 2 out of 5. So it's really good. And now going to the survey sections structure, I'm going to just present the sections breakdown and then give the floor to the rest of the team so they can explain what we did. As I said, there were 3 sections of the survey. There was the section 1 about the national member body structure, that we gather information about their memberships, their finances, how many commissions they had, and so on. Then section 2 was about the DanceSport per se, how many athletes they had, officials, disciplines, what were the format, how they were developing. As well as section 3 is about expansion, technology, the Youth Olympic Games, and the feedback of the survey as a whole. And on that, I'm going to let Simon talk to you about the numbers.
Thank you, Paola. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual results themselves, beginning with, as Paola said, the majority of the national member bodies do come from Europe and Asia, and of course this is represented in those that took the survey. About 55 out of those 75 are recognized by their national Olympic committees, and the average age of your national member body is about 21 to 30 years old, indicating relatively a young national member bodies. Internally, about 50% on average compose their presidium board between 6 to 10 members. On average, again, about a 4-year term with elections every 4 years. And when it's the board of directors themselves, it's about 60% male to 40% female, indicating quite a diverse presidium board and director, which is also mirrored in the departments themselves, where we have 39% female employed on a full-time basis across the whole of the national member bodies. For those departments, competitions, administration, finance, education, the things that really help the sport run are most common. And we look at some of the more specialist departments like tech, marketing, medical are not so common. How do they finance? How do the national member bodies continue to run and operate? Well, firstly, sponsorship only accounts for about 20% of the national member bodies funding. However, when it comes to public funding, 3/5 get money either from ministries of sport, national Olympic committees, and to get this, the criteria is either winning medals, increasing the number of competitions, increasing the number of athletes, again tied to the development of the sport itself. What do they use this money for? Well, if we look at the budget, again, it's mainly focusing on that sport area where you have competitions, education and training and admin, and of course, the marketing, media and other infrastructure is not so common. Okay, and their commissions. Firstly, sport, ethics and education again are the most common and most frequent. Anti-doping is only in about 30% and only about 13% consider entourage as part of their commissions. Quite a large number, almost 3/4, do use their own code of ethics, while the remainder adapt either from World Dance or the IOC and use their code of ethics as a guideline. And when it comes to the doping assessment carried out by the national member bodies, about 1/4 do carry out the test themselves, while 60% are part of a national anti-doping organization. Okay, so moving more deeper into the sport itself with the disciplines, we can see that Latin and Standard are by far the most popular and are in fact part of every single national member body. American Smooth is the least popular. And if we look at the others section, interestingly we found the majority of these responses actually put wheelchair dance. So that's a big indication of what might not be one of the more mainstream, more common dances, but is still popular. Talking about popularity, we can see that combined, 24 out of the 75 consider dance sport to be a marginal sport, and only a small amount consider within the top 5 or top 10 sports in their country. The athletes and officials, we can see that this diversity we talked about in the workforce and on the directors is also portrayed in the athletes itself, with about a 57 to 43% split between female and male athletes. Of course, again, Standard and Latin will be the most common for the numbers. However, interestingly, female is, we have cheerleading as quite a high percentage of female athletes. And if we go to officials, again, there's almost the equal representation. And one of the only differences that we've noticed is that Caribbean becomes one of the more popular, along with the top 3. And in men, it's a significantly high number of officials are operating in Caribbean dance. And finally, when it comes to the development, we can see that not too many, about 1/4 again, have their own National Dance Sport Academy. About half think that the dance sport is part of the curriculum in their school country, part of the education in physical education. And finally, only about 20% produce their own resources to help educate and help develop dance. And with the development of coaches, we can see that a large number, a very high percentage, 64 out of the 75 do conduct training for their officials and judges. But one very interesting thing is that there's a much higher number in Asia and of course Europe as we expect. And one of the feedbacks that we got from the national member bodies was that all the training courses for coaches are being held in Europe or Asia. So we think this might be quite a clear indicator why those numbers are so big. And to discuss the final section will be Alex.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning. The national member body's growth priority is to increase the number and to improve the quality of the athletes, as well as increase the competition level. And for those not recognized yet by the NOC, they intend to be recognized as soon as possible, mainly after the inclusion of the DanceSport as part of the EEO 2018. They also believe that promote and celebrate World Dance Sport Day should be good for the expansion process of the sport, and a fixed date should be the best way to do it. In terms of promotion, although some trying to include the dance sport in the school system in their countries, the competition is still the best way to promote the sport worldwide. In terms of broadcasting, the most common broadcast system is by free TV and online, and social media has an important role here, and Facebook is the most used by all the national federations. In terms of technology, there is not a big problem for them, as most of the national bodies and athletes and officials have access to the new technologies. But when we asked about the new process, scrutiny and counting software as the most required, as well as the development of new apps and online tools for their members in their countries. The Youth Olympic Games was really important, and they are very excited about it. And most of them intend to be part of the YOG 2018 by qualifying for the games, or even promoting the program in their country, or organizing qualifying games in their own countries. But we have here some issues. There is only 43% of the MBs that has been assisted by their NOCs, and only 37% of the federations has breaking as a current discipline by the time of the survey. The good point is that after being part of the YOGI, half of the ones that didn't have the breaking before intend to develop the new discipline in their countries. And finally, in terms of feedback, WDSF has a very positive feedback by the members. Maybe some improvements in the website and communication in the future should be done. And the survey feedback, we had a score of 6.4 out of 10, which was good for the first survey, and a very high rate of answer also during this process. And the main issues we have with this process is about the length of the questionnaire we discussed before, and also some questions should be better developed for them to find the right answers and not misunderstand the questions. And now Mac will talk about the combinations.
Right, thank you, Alex. So one of the key aspects of our project was to make a process that is sustainable and easily reusable by the Federation in the future. So having this in mind, we have built a process flow which indicates step by step the steps we've taken to get to where we did. And it's easy to follow for the Federation in future to re-implement. Now, I won't go through all the steps in detail now, but it's just to give an indication of what it looks like. Also, what is very important was to build a user manual relating to the online tool we were using. So whereas it was generally easy to use for most of the part, there were some small challenges we had with data collection at the end and analysis, so we tried to give some tips and recommendations on how WDSF can reuse this more efficiently in the future. And now, more importantly, we have come up with 10 recommendations for WDSF for the future relating to the survey and also just in general. So first of all was improve the quality of the questions, and what we meant by that is that while the questions were to us clear to understand, maybe sometimes for countries that didn't have English as their first language or simply weren't aware of some technical terms, had a difficult time to understand some questions, and that was a common feedback. Second of all, clear instructions, so this kind of follows the first recommendation, so try to really explain more in detail what is required for them so we get consistent data. Number 3, given that WDSF has a Barcelona team that is Spanish speaking and that there's a lot of Spanish speaking members, we thought it would be good that not only for a survey but in general they interact more closely and try to use their language as the main means of communication. Fourth, we thought it'd be good for WDSF to come up with a list of terms for the sport as a whole that could be published on their website and given out to the NMBs that really outlines all the key technical terms and some of the things that people might not be familiar with, which also includes the public. Fifth, share information in advance. So this is relating to the survey. So as you may recall, the survey took an average 2.5 hours to complete. One of the key things that the NMBs said was that they would have liked to know which information was required from them in advance so that they could gather all these things and then just input when it came time to do the survey. So that would definitely be maybe something to think about for next time. Then reduce the questionnaire length. Well, we had 120 questions in our questionnaire. Some questions, when we looked at them at the end, we maybe found that actually the value we got from the data was maybe not so relevant, so maybe try to filter out what is really important and what isn't. Then break up sections by time frame, so depending on how often the WDSF wants to redo this survey, maybe have one section done in 1 quarter, then another section done 6 months later, a third section done another 6 months. So that would reduce the overall length of the survey. 8, take action based on the findings. So a lot of the members were extremely happy, particularly the small ones, that we reached out to them. But we also think that they would be even more happy to see concrete steps taken from this. And relating to that, create a communication strategy to really demonstrate that WDSF has taken concrete steps from this survey. And finally, make a simple information management system where the NMBs could simply update, let's say in a centralized database, their contact information and other basic things like that, which can change quite often. And again, when we were trying to contact some of the federations by calling them, there were quite a few that we simply didn't know how to contact. The existing phone numbers weren't active, and the emails as well. So having maybe a simple centralized database would be good for efficiency of the federation. And that would be it. Once again, I'd like to thank the WDSF and also the Barcelona office, which was extremely helpful in the process. And we would be happy to take any questions.